Another movie I watched in the last week was Francis Ford Coppola's The Outsiders from 1983, an adaptation of S.E. Hinton's novel about youthful rebellion in early 60s Oklahoma. A school librarian had written to Coppola, accompanied by a petition of hundreds of students who asked him to turn the book into a movie because they all loved it. Coppola was deeply moved by this show of love for literature and read the book and fell in love with it as well. It's the story of a young gang of self proclaimed greasers in Tulsa in the early 60s. They are delinquents getting up to mischief, brawling, very mild petty theft, trying to pick up girls, nothing really serious. But there's an ongoing feud with the wealthier figures of the town, the wealthier kids called the socias, or socialite. This gets out of hand after a visit to a drive-in movie, where two of the greasers attempt to chat up two of the Soch girls, and it turns into a fight that ends up with one of the Soch guys dead. They flee town and are forced into hiding, reevaluating their position, and causing the other members of the group to reflect on their own situation. And even the Socias start to wonder whether or not any of this really matters. It's an examination of adolescent masculinity. All of these characters are relatively young. The oldest of them is in his early 20s, with Darry, played by Patrick Swayze, acting as guardian for his two younger brothers, played by Rob Lowe and C Thomas Howell. And we see as they move from childhood and this fantasy of delinquency and rough, tough gangster behavior and becoming more mature and more thoughtful and more introspective and more conscious of their own behavior and the impact that it has and their environment. And the same with the socials, where at one point the social leader takes Howell's character to one side for a serious conversation, and they speak to each other as equals, showing that this gang culture is really nothing more than a construct. It's a class-based situation. The film is very conscious of this class-based situation, of this two-tier system in the town. It's a very intelligent, thoughtful, well-produced film. With an exceptional cast. So many of these young actors would go on to become major names. As I said, Patrick Swayze, Rob Lowe, C. Thomas Howell, other members of the gang played by Emilio Estevez, Ralph Macchio, Matt Dillon, Tom Cruise in his first major film role. And we also have Diane Lane in one of the other major roles. It's really shocking to see so many of them so young and so eager and full of promise. The film's direction is relatively restrained. There is a couple of scenes of mixing images in a way that recalls bits of Apocalypse Now. And the use of music I thought was particularly notable because the version I watched was the complete novel edition. The original cut ran about 90 minutes. This runs 1 hour 55. And Coppola decided to reduce the presence of his father's score because he felt it was a little overpowering, and instead there's much more pop music of the time included in its place. I felt that the score was still somewhat intrusive, somewhat melodramatic, and excessively syrupy almost at some points, and in some scenes the sound mix is quite poor so that the dialogue is lost underneath the weight of Carmine Coppola's music. But overall, it's a very intelligent, thoughtful, compassionate film, looking at these kids from the outside and treating them with respect and as intelligent human beings. And as the story progresses, we see that there's more to them than just youthful delinquents. Some of them get involved in an event that leads to them being held as heroes by the town and incurring even the respect of some of the socias. And it's a film that avoids easy answers. It's a film that avoids simplicity, and we see the complexity of these characters and the complexity of their environment. But the overriding sense is always these are essentially good people, often pushed into bad situations and making bad or uninformed choices. But their environment has pushed them into this. They are basically good, and if they could understand that and they could work with that, they would have a way out of their lives. I thought it was a really fascinating, well made, really engaging film, one of Coppola's best, perhaps, and I recommend it very highly.